Hello again, folks. Steve here, just out on a little bit of a walk on a trip here before I hit the road in the morning. Anyway, yesterday on the road I was listening to a podcast by Stefan Molyneux. He was interviewing a guy named Duke Pesta, and they were talking about the play King Lear, the Shakespearean play King Lear. And I thought there was a lot of good information in there about the value of pain and suffering. And it was interesting actually because I was having coffee with an older guy who I really admire. He's an entrepreneur for many, many years. A few weeks ago, and I had brought along a friend of mine, a young guy who's entrepreneurial minded, and he likes to meet people who he can admire and become inspired by, older people who've been through the ropes kind of thing, right? And one of the things that this older guy told a younger guy was that, in his experience, unless you've been through a bit of pain, it's really, really a challenge to get much gain. That's where the learning process takes place, right? And it kind of makes sense in a way. And apparently the book of Job, which I'm going to read again one of these days, has a lot of good information about that as a lesson for, the value of suffering. And a lot of these things have been lost by this socialist, communist, quasi-scientific model of, let's wash everybody's pains away and then everything will be perfect. But the thing is, we have evolved as human beings to grow as a result of challenges, like the rabbit. Oops, that doesn't work very well, does it? The rabbit, in where I live anyways, they turn white in the fall to blend with the snow, and then they turn brown in the summer to blend with the grasses and so on. And they change color as the result of, the oncoming winter. Like they get cold and then the fur actually grows thicker and so on. So there's lots of examples of how we creatures react to hardship, right? And it's just it seems to be the way it is. I mean, when we're kids, if we it's the old saying, right? If you don't learn how to ride a bike, you gotta fall a few times, and if you don't, you never learn how to avoid those situations. And it's just, and I was thinking too, when I first come up with this idea of the continuum of advancement, this little graph chart that I have, which is timeline, time on the bottom, and the vertical is the quality of life, right? We all want more pleasures. We all want more enjoyment in our lives, and we go through a process, right? We go through a process of desiring what it is that we want. We go through the process of sort of seeing it or planning it out. If it's a bigger job, we plan it out more. Like a house, we get plans and architects and colors and so on and all that sort of thing. And then we have to believe it, right? If we don't believe it, if it's far outrageous, then we just dream about it. That's all. But then we gotta be willing to act at a certain point, right? And when we're willing to act, we take actions that are effective and constructive and so on. We get there. But what begins before that? What begins before that is what causes the desire. And to me, causing the desire is like throwing the seed upon the ground. The old parables, right? Throwing the seed upon the ground is what, you could say sort of starts the process. But it seems like it's painful because you're throwing away these seeds. But for example, laying the seed for wanting to lose weight might be the pain of being overweight. Laying the seed of wanting to do different lifestyle choices to be healthier might be the result of not feeling healthy. We've seen lots of people, everybody's experienced this. I've seen a guy before who, he had bad habits. He'd smoked, he drank, he was always angry, and it was crazy hours and everything else. And then he almost dies, right? He ends up in hospital, and the doctor says, you don't start getting your act together, you're not going to be around much longer. And this is an example. These are examples of pain, right? So pain, if it's just pain, then it doesn't do anything. If we're not aware of it, we got to become aware too, right? And so if we're just experiencing pain, and we're not somehow capitalizing on that. That's like in the parable of the seeds, right? Some of it lands on infertile soil, some of it lands in a stream maybe, some of it lands and the birds pick it up. It doesn't go anywhere, right? And then some of it will germinate, but the sun will come out and burn it off, and it won't go anywhere. Those are our plans that weren't very well planned, and they don't go anywhere. You know, we start, but we don't actually do much in the way of finishing or getting on with it. And but if we become more aware, and we don't set out to deliberately make ourselves painful, but this is the nature of life, right? The nature of life is this gets thrown at us all the time. We're constantly sowing out these seeds, and not only us, but just our environment, right? We're constantly running into old age, running into this virus, that virus, and into challenges of the weather, and a hole in the roof, and maintenance on the house, and all kinds of things that are constantly coming up against us. And it's this resistance, this friction that we constantly experience that can strengthen us, right? It's just like when you go to the gym, you deliberately put yourself into a resistance mode, resistance situations, that you can grow stronger muscles, right? And life is like that if we choose to do it that way. If we choose to exercise ourselves as a result of experiencing the challenges, then we can grow. And all the things that happen on that continuum of advancement that I was talking about are growth points, right? Like the development of desire. The spark of desire is like the germination that takes place on the seed. The seed itself is not growing, but as soon as it experiences the right situation of meeting the growth potential. So if we have pain that meets the growth potential, if we're aware enough of that, then we can spark, or we can germinate that seed of pain and into a desire to change. Like if we're sick and we just complain about it, well, that's a seed that just fell on infertile ground. It's never going to grow. But if we recognize it and say, this is interesting, I'm going to spark desire to be healthier. At that point, we've germinated that seed of pain into that desire. And then we begin to create the process in our minds. What do we have to do? That's like the visualization. That's a growth point, right? We have to get to the point of believing it. We have to, the old biblical saying, whatsoever you wish for when you pray, believing that you will receive it, you'll receive it. If you don't believe it, it becomes mere daydreaming, right? But that's a growth point. We're creating in our mind, we're creating in our imagination, we're creating in our feelings. We're creating maybe even a plan of action, right? Going to see the doctor, going to see a nutritionist, going to see a health expert, going to see a fitness expert, all these sorts of things, beginning to read books and all that. We're beginning to create before we've actually developed a real action plan. And then we really believe it. We're with the will to act. When we have the will to move, right? Imagine if that little seed, if all of a sudden it was to germinate and had no will. Imagine if it had no will. It was not conscious, but if it was conscious and it had no will, it would just wilt. It would just wilt and die, and it wouldn't go anywhere, like it even had everything else. But when we're willing to act, we take action. Let's say if it's a health situation, we take action and we develop, greater, different nutritional habits, different mobility habits, different who we hang out with, different associations, we read different books, we watch different programs, and we take different actions. At the end of the day, we take different actions, right? And results start to come in, right? The old saying, garbage in, garbage out. Well, good quality in, we begin to see good quality results coming as a result of it. At least as far as our actions are concerned, right? This is, of course, dependent upon our actions making the difference that we're looking for. This is not always the case in life, but it is the case often enough so that we might as well take advantage of it. So once again, Steve here, Green Guy chatting. I hope this was helpful. A little bit of a ramble out on a walk here. Time for me to get going on the road. But I think the recognition of the value of pain as really the seed sowing of our potential growth, and recognition of those painful or challenging moments to be the germination of growth in our lives. Great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.